Yes, guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Bright, and this is the Bright Show Podcast Boxing. And guys, this is the final prediction for Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson in New York. Look, I am super excited about this fight. Recently, I did a reaction to the face-off on DAZN, and I noticed two main things that I think would decide the way this fight plays out. But before we go into the discussion and break down how this fight will play out, I think it's worth mentioning the resumes that both fighters have, right? If you look at Teofimo Lopez here, right? 22, wins, 0, draws, and basically 1 loss to, George Kambosos Jr., 13 KOs, right? But you can see there, Teo looks like he has the better resume as compared to someone like Shakur Stevenson, right? If you look here, Shakur Stevenson, I mean, he beats Segura, Zepeda, Josh Padley. If you look at his resume, there's the good fighters on there, right? Good fighters, Oscar Valdez, good fighter. But there's nothing that really jumps out to you to go, this is a great win. These are really good wins. Don't get me wrong. But I think that, Lopez definitely has a better resume on paper to someone like Shakur Stevenson. But look, Arnold Barboza here, a win that I was surprised the way Lopez pulled this off was against Josh Taylor over here, right? Winning this fight, of course, losing to George Kambosos Jr. and then coming back and really, stake his claim in the division, beating, Jermaine Ortiz. As I said, Arnold Barboza, some really, really good wins. And of course, as I mentioned before, the Josh Taylor win is a fantastic win. And then, of course, beating Vasily Lomachenko, who at that time was, in his prime, I would say, and was a really good fighter. So, look, in terms of comparing, resumes, I think Teofimo Lopez definitely has a better resume than Shakur Stevenson. Now, with that being said, there's two main reasons that I think would change the way this fight plays out, right? As I said, I watched the face-off. I noticed a few things between these guys. And I think the main reason, right, the number one reason that would change the way this fight plays out is that both fighters understand very well each other's strengths and their weaknesses. They know each other, right? They know each other, they've heard stories in gyms, they've watched each other over the years. And I think both fighters have a very good understanding of how each fighter, would approach this fight in terms of their strengths and their weaknesses. Teo knows that, Stevenson is a very good boxer. He boxes well on the back foot. He's got that really silky defensive maneuvers. His footwork is really good. And he knows how to evade shots, right? But then he knows how to control the distance. But then Teo also understands that, Stevenson is not very effective when he fights on the front foot because he hasn't got the power. He hasn't got the prowess in terms of, the killer instinct. He hasn't got the ability to, set traps which will lead to a knockout because, he doesn't get a lot of knockouts, but he can outbox you. So Teo knows that. Now, Stevenson is also aware that Teofimo Lopez is a very good front foot pressure fighter. He knows that he's got power in his hands. He knows that, Lopez can set traps on the front foot. But then, once again, he knows that Lopez is not very good at fighting on the back foot. So he will try and exploit the idea of Lopez leaving holes in his defense when he fights on the back foot. So it's a really interesting fight because both fighters are so good in the way they fight that, it is up to them to exploit the differences, the weaknesses within each other's game. I think this fight will play out in a way that it will be cagey in the first few rounds because they want to get to know each other. Now, it's about who wants to make the right move at the right time in terms of who wants to step in on the front foot and who wants to take the fight to each other. I am inclined to think that Teofimo Lopez knows that he can't win this fight on the back foot. So he's definitely going to try and fight the whole time on the front foot. And it's up to Stevenson to stop that. And that is using his jab, using his footwork, circling around the ring and taking the sting out of the punches, the power punches that Teo would love to throw. Because Teofimo Lopez, he showed that he can fight on the front foot when he's fighting a southpaw, a very good southpaw. And I thought, Josh Taylor is a brilliant southpaw. I thought he was an incredible fighter. But the way Teo was able to defeat Josh Taylor was fighting on the front foot, making Josh Taylor make mistakes and then capitalizing on those mistakes. And I think Teofimo Lopez can do that in this fight. If he can get Shakur Stevenson to make those mistakes, right? He has to make him make those mistakes, because Stevenson is a very good defensive fighter. So if you don't make him make mistakes, then you're not going to capitalize on those mistakes. And I think, for Stevenson, he would know that Teofimo Lopez does not fight well on the back foot. But the question is, has Stevenson got the ability, right? Has he got the power? Has he got the killer instinct to put Teo on the back foot? Because you need to have power to put someone on the back foot. You need to have, if Teofimo Lopez can take Stevenson's power easily, Stevenson is in a massive trouble. Like, he is in a massive trouble if Teofimo Lopez tastes his power and go, I can take this. If he can do that, right? If he can take his power, then Stevenson is in a difficult situation. So Stevenson has to make sure that he can put Teofimo Lopez on the back foot, and Teofimo Lopez has to stay on the back foot for Stevenson to win this fight. If Stevenson does not move around the ring very well and stays stationary, stays on the ropes, then he's asking for trouble. That's the way I see this fight going. He cannot stay on the ropes. He has to get off of the ropes. He has to circle to take the sting out of the punches of Teo, and he has to make Teo make mistakes, and he has to capitalize on that. So look, for me, I think because of the style matchup in this fight, I think Teo can win this fight when he's on the front foot. I think that Teo will lose this fight if he fights on the back foot. And I think that, Stevenson would definitely be able to win this fight if he can get Teo to fight on the back foot. But has Stevenson got the ability? Has he got the know-how? Has he got the killer instinct? Has he got the dog in him to be able to push Teo back on his back foot? That is a really good question that I would want you guys to get in the comment section and let me know if you think he can do that. And then the second thing, and the most important thing in this fight that I think would decide the way this fight plays out, is the mentality around losing the O. Now, this is something I've always, have an issue with when it comes to boxing, especially from the Mayweather era, where fighters did not want to take on, tough opponents because they did not want to lose the O. And I think the difference between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson in this fight is Teofimo Lopez has lost. He's come back from a loss. It's made him a better fighter, right? It's built character in him. And I think he takes that into this fight, knowing that he's lost already. He doesn't need to think about losing. He doesn't need to, worry about losing his O. He goes into this fight with a bit more assurance, knowing that regardless of whatever happens, he's lost already. Stevenson, on the other hand, we know that he's very close with, Terence Crawford, and therefore thinks that he wants to emulate what Terence Crawford did. So Stevenson would want to protect his O. And I saw that when they did the face-off, where Stevens was very proud of the fact that he hasn't lost before and that, he is the better fighter. And I think that is a mentality flaw, especially when you're fighting a very good fighter like Teofimo Lopez, because he's coming in with nothing to lose. He's coming in to do damage. He's coming in to win this fight. Whereas I think Stevenson will be circumspect of losing this fight because of his O, because he wants to be like Terence Crawford. But not everybody can be like Terence Crawford. And I think that is the difference in this fight, where I think Teofimo Lopez will be more spiteful because he knows he has nothing to lose. But I think Shakur Stevenson will be a little bit more circumspect, because if in his mind, if he can keep his O, then he can be like Floyd Mayweather Jr., or he can be like Terence Crawford. And I think this is where the major difference in this fight is going to happen. So look, if I was to make a prediction and pick a winner, I think Teofimo Lopez wins this fight on points. Now, yes, I really do. I think he wins this fight on points. Now, a lot of people would say, but Shakur Stevenson is the better boxer. So if it comes to points win, then Shakur Stevenson should win this fight on points easily. And, logic says that. But I think because Teo has more power than Stevenson, Teo would be able to establish his jab. Absolutely. I think Teo will be able to make Stevenson feel that he cannot make mistakes because he's got power. And because of that, I think Teo would win this fight on points because he's going to be able to, punch in between Stevenson's punches. Just exactly how he did against Josh Taylor, where he made Josh Taylor felt his power. And it looked like he was just a step ahead of Josh Taylor every single time. And I think that's how Teo is going to win this fight. Yes, Stevenson is a much, maybe the silkier, better boxer than, Lopez, who is a good boxer. But I think because he's got power and he's a good boxer and he's going to fight on the front foot and he's not thinking about losing his O because the O is gone. Now he's a better fighter because he's lost and he's come back and he's built character. Because of that, I think Teofimo Lopez wins this fight on point. I am quite interested to know what you guys think about this. What is your prediction? How do you see this fight playing out? Get in the comment section and let me know. And guys, we will be doing a live watch along for this fight. So don't forget to join the live. I'm going to comment on the fight, score the fight as the fight is going on. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys on the, live watch along. Get in the comment section and let me know what you think about it.